All right, we are live, coming to you from Houston, Texas. This is the Prosper Nutrition Show, where we want you to prosper and be in health. My name is Jason Steves. I'm clinical account specialist with Perk Integrative Health, and I'm joined by Steve Steves, who is a certified clinical nutritionist, board certified naturopathic doctor. And we are going to talk to you today about how to fight infection with a healthy immune system. Welcome, Steve. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, I'm excited to be back in the saddle doing this with you, Jason. We've got so much to offer. We've been working all summer to develop just more information for the people so that they can walk in a freedom of health and not be afraid of disease, not be afraid of viruses. God is their healer, and we're excited to share what we have on store today and what's coming up for this whole fall.
All right. Yeah. We want to make sure to equip you with the strategies that we know have been effective for our clients, ourselves, for over 30 years. And so stay tuned. We're going to give you a lot of neat stuff today. The first thing we're going to touch on is a bit of a interesting topic here. There's this article in Public Health. It says what to do if you are sick or possibly exposed. And so this is going to be more allopathic medicine approaches to kind of dealing with viral exposure. And so they've got some information here. If I tested positive, so they're obviously saying you should do tests to find out. They talk about how to isolate, or some people call quarantine, and how to end your isolation. And then there's other strategies that they talk about that are based in our Western model of medical practice that diagnoses and treats disease, that manages diseases. And we wanted to tell you right now, we are not medical doctors. We do not diagnose or treat disease. We don't manage disease, and we like it that way. And so, Steve, let me ask you this question. I know when you first got into becoming a nutritionist, before that, you were kind of dealing with health issues and you were going to medical doctors. Back when you were exposed and you got sick with the flu or things like that, what did you used to do? And what have you learned now how to do when you get sick?
Well, don't you dig deep with that question right there? Back in the day, before I knew what I do now about how to get the body well, we would take things that we knew helped build up the immune system, which had limited effectiveness, but we were younger. Our bodies were capable of bouncing back just with the minimal things that we were doing. It's kind of like any person that gets sick or an animal that gets sick, you kind of withdraw from activity and you stop eating and you start just relaxing and letting the body heal itself. That's what the body knows to do. But oftentimes people will take medications, which I did, to suppress their symptoms so that they can push through and get more work done or whatever they have planned in their day. The problem with that is the symptoms, and they list that in this article here, the possible symptoms. And even when we were sick 2 years ago with the flu, it was probably one of the strains of COVID. So we had set ourselves up, and like, this is my closest reminder. This is the past in 2 years ago. I remember the summer, your girls coming from Virginia, and then we planned a lot of activities for a month. We went to water parks. We ate at places we don't, and eating food we don't normally eat that are immunocompromising. And we just pushed ourselves harder, staying up later. And so we set ourselves up for a weakened immune system. And then I wasn't taking as many protocols, because we'd go to the water park middle of the day. I wouldn't take my ascorbate with me. And sure enough, it wasn't long after they left, and then our guard comes down, the body goes, okay, I got to do some cleanup now. I've been exposed to viruses and they seem to be trying to take over. Let's shut the body down here and let it clean house. And boy, we had some house cleaning. Mom and I were shut down for about 3 weeks, and weight loss, flu-like symptoms that were, just debilitating, had no strength, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. But we stayed with our protocols and got back on top. And a lot of people, everybody's got a different immune system. And our immunity has its own capabilities of repairing the body. It's just, are we giving it enough support for repair? And are we aware of the things that weaken it that we need to get rid of? And I learned a couple of those through doing our lymphocyte response assay, the ELISA test, finding that we had fungus in our AC units, and I was sensitive to certain foods that I shouldn't be eating. So continuing, that's a continual process. We always have to keep an eye on what our immune system is doing, and the functional testing that we do is perfect for that. Not just finding out if I had COVID. When we were sick, we didn't go get a COVID test. We didn't need to. We knew what our immune system needed, because the immune system's natural killer cells, cytokines, they all work to destroy viruses. We just had to feed them the fuel that we knew would make them aggressive enough to clean house. And on the flip side of it, we felt better in a month after than we remember feeling in years. It was like almost a euphoria, because we had worked so diligently to get our health back and rest and take our nutrients. Interesting thing happened at that time. We tried to cut back on our protocols. I remember taking the ascorbate, our vitamin C max, 3 times or 4 times a day. And so I thought, well, I'll go back to just the 2 times a day. And we know lymphocytes and neutrophils and immune cells, they have a short life in the body, and they utilize ascorbate, and it's like fuel in your car. You got to feed them again. So about every 3 to 4 hours, they're really hungry for more demand, depending on how much work they're doing to clean up viral and bacterial and fungal and junk in the body. So I tried to cut back on twice a day, and I could feel it instantly. In the first day where I missed my midday dose, like in the afternoon, I was more fatigued, because that's the number one vitamin that the adrenal glands use to make hormones, ascorbate. It's involved in so many metabolic processes, and people they almost poo-poo it off, like, well, I'll take it when I feel a cold coming on. You make collagen from it. That's why your mom has a biological age of about a 40-year-old female at 64. Is because she's very adamant about taking her ascorbate. And my skin looks probably 15 years younger than my actual age. So it's the amount of oxidative stress that can be suppressed with that, and the support that we get through our diet. There's so many factors, and I guess we have that in a couple of summaries that we could probably be offering at the end here. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like when you were young, before you kind of found a better way that we now teach, is you did kind of go the traditional way when you were younger, when you didn't know.
Took a lot of antibiotics. Yeah.
Right.
A lot of thinking those would help. And antibiotics don't help with viruses. They just weaken your natural gut immune response, and they cause liver dysfunction. And I did that for years. Coming off of that was quite a story.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, is you're coming from a place where, sometimes it's helpful for people to know you knew what it was like trying to do things the other way. And now you've become, you've come to understand a better way, and are now wanting to share that. And so now it sounds like what you do is you really evaluate where things are in a different ways. You go do tests, you make sure you're focusing on your lifestyle, and including all the different factors as far as supplementation and diet and sleep and all that. So that's good, and I think that's important. Make sure you remember, if you're watching right now on prospernutrition.com, you can download the 7 proven steps. And these are things that we've compiled. Steve and I have compiled over the years we've been working together. Steve, 30 years. I've been working with him about 15 years. And what we've done is we've put together these principles that really, if you really look at what God teaches us about the cause of our problems, is essentially comes down to the choices we make, right? Missing the mark, right? And so these 7 proven steps, free download from our website, really help you hone in on those things that we found and teach people in our clinic that they can change in their lifestyle and really see a lot of improvement in their health. So download that 7 proven steps on prospernutrition.com. It's a free download. You'll be able to stay connected with us via email and get, updates on what we have going on. So thank you, Steve, for that. I've also got some other questions here for you, if you don't mind me asking you. You're the expert. You've been doing this with clients for about 30 years, maybe over 30 years, since you were doing it part-time before you went full-time. And so from your experience in working with clients over these 30 years, what are the reasons why you've seen I guess you could say the most common reasons why people will end up getting the flu or getting like a seasonal flu or sickness like that? Is it infection? Is it just because they get exposed to somebody else? Is that it? They just don't have control over it, and all of a sudden they're sick? What is it?
Great question. We don't just wake up one day and all of a sudden we bought into sickness. It took, based on those 7 proven steps, that first step is, you are what you eat. But even Hippocrates said, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. We should go on to say that food can be poison if you choose wrongly. And that's why we do the ELISA and lymphocyte response assay to identify what foods are friendly and what foods are against your immune system. But, we can start in general with the Mediterranean approach and along those lines too, with the Mediterranean diet of eating clean foods. And we have a handout on that we use, and we set that up based on an individual's basal metabolic rate. They need to know how many calories they need, units of energy. So the white blood cell that fights the viruses and then clears it out of our system is like a hungry race car, or we could refer it to as like a military jet that sucks up massive amounts of jet fuel when it's exploding and chasing the enemy and releasing rockets and firing at the enemy. And that's what your immune system does. So we've got to feed that immune system the kind of fuel that is high quality, that's going to make it be precise in its finding viruses, identifying within cells and destroying them in their place, so that we can continue on. But food can suppress that. But we need the food as a fuel, because inside that white blood cell, the nutrients that are used, and we do another test on lymphocytes. It's called a micronutrient test. It measures within your lymphocytes how much vitamin B they have, all the B1, the B2, B3, niacin, B6, B5, B12. And then it measures amino acids. It measures mineral levels, about 35 different markers plus fatty acids to see what kind of fuel are we getting in those immune cells to fight. So that comes from our food, but most of our food is just inept and the quality is not adequate. We're exposed to too much. We need so many additional nutrients. And that's why we developed the bundle, as you're showing it there. Those primary nutrients that people need to activate immunity along with their diet, eating a clean Mediterranean diet, staying away from processed foods, staying away from refined sugars and hydrogenated oils. That's a big issue of immune weakness. Also dairy products that are mucus forming. And then considering in the midst of the storm, and I always do this with clients, is I'll tell them, do a Daniel fast for however long it takes. And usually it only takes 24 to 48 hours and they start feeling much better. Whether it's simple sinus reactions to this time of year with the pollen, now we're getting some of the rains back in our area, and you're going to see the weeds start to blossom with their pollen. And so people are going to be reactive also with the fungus and the molds that are coming back because of higher humidity. And so we need greater immune stability, more fuel for that immune system, like you've got there in that immune bundle. Very important.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is it's not just a virus. that is getting people sick with the flu. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
In fact, it's not the virus at all. There's people who are exposed to it who carry the virus and never get symptomatic. They're asymptomatic all the time because their immune systems are so virulent. They're getting their rest. They're eating good foods. They're hydrating well. They're exercising. They're doing the 7 principles that we list. They're modifying their stress. They're minimizing their stress. They are dealing with getting good sleep. They're also walking by faith and not by sight. And they don't have a fear of anything that they hear out there in the media that tells them, well, you're going down if you don't do this procedure. Well, you're certainly going down if you don't follow God's natural ways. There's no way around that. And man has tried to develop these ways that they think we're gonna win this war against cancer and heart disease and killing viruses and overcoming these diseases. God is the author of health. He is the creator of the body. His name is Jehovah Rapha, which means the Lord God, our healer. He has a plan. And it says that in one of the prophets, he said, consider the old ways and don't depart from them. When you come to a crossroad in life, it says, look to the old ways. Don't be fearful and run with some kind of a new protocol, some kind of a new vaccine or some kind of a new antiviral this or anti-immune or anti-disease this, whatever your anti-disease drug or mechanism is, if it's not considered of the old ways. So these nutrients we talk about, God created them on that first day when he made the plants and herbs. He set everything up under what's called an anthropic principle. That means he made it for us. All the stars in the heavens that are millions of light years away, that light became instantly available for us to see at the earth. We didn't have to wait for millions of light years because creation is only about 6,000 to 7,000 years old, according to the proper biblical interpretation of creation. And some will have argument with that, but that's just my take on it. Just ended up studying that through Liberty University. But the one thing we want to get out of it, folks, is the anthropic principle. God created everything for us, and he wanted his glory to be seen through us. His glory is not seen through us well when we are sickly and not well and able to care for our families, but we have to choose, just as he said in Exodus, if you hearken to my voice and follow in my ways, do keep my commands and my decrees, then no disease will come upon you, for I am the Lord who heals you. And he's got some foundational things that we're incorporating here in these 7 principles. That's that free guide that I encourage you all to sign up for that and meditate on those things. They'll change you, just meditating on one at a time each day. Maybe you're going to drink more water in one day. Maybe you're going to focus on getting to bed at night, not staying up and looking at electronic devices and overstimulating your autonomic nervous system. And then you won't get a refreshed sleep and you wake up fatigued and you're susceptible for illness. And that's how we get set up for illness. Our immune systems are completely capable of handling everything they're exposed to. We just need to limit that exposure and keep the immune system strong.
Thank you. Yes. So it sounds like when you're, helping people understand why they get sick, you're helping them see that they have a lot of control over whether or not they get sick, and there are other factors involved. But one of the questions I had, it kind of leads into this question, is it seems like there are, some people can notice that maybe friends or family members, they have friends or family members that get sick often, and some friends or family members, they don't get sick as much or barely at all. And from what it sounds like you said is that, it may be that some of them are more disciplined or simply just aren't as worried about it. And I find that really interesting. Do you ever have people that ask you that question? Well, I've got someone who gets sick all the time, or they say, well, I know someone who never gets sick, and they try to chalk that up to genetics. And how do you respond to that question why some people get the flu and others don't?
Another excellent question. The key is epigenetic exposure. So epi referring to the environment, the genetic code that's tightly woven and protected within the nucleus of our cells in the DNA is constantly sending out signals through the RNA mechanism and responding to the outside world. And the RNA is responding in and out of the cell. And depending on our exposure and our nutrient support for that cell to function will determine our response. Now, these flu, let's use an example. Let's use my history as an example. I was a breached baby. And at that time in 1958, the doctors worked with forceps and they would try to reach inside the mother's womb and flip the baby around. And so they tried to flip me around, and two things happened. They fractured my skull and they caused a double hernia rip in my lower abdomen. So I was born, well, within 3 weeks, I think it was in 3 weeks, I had to have that double hernia operation. And of course, the skull had been fractured. Then I was not breastfed. Now, what happens when a child isn't breastfed, they don't get the colostrum and the immune antibody building from the mother that they need. Not only that, is then they're put on something that weakens immunity, and that's some kind of a dairy formula that's formulated by the wonderful dairy industry of America. And they tell you that that milk from a cow that has 25 proteins, casein proteins that humans can't even metabolize, is good for your newborn baby. And they believed that back in 1958. And they also didn't know that if the mother smoked when the child was in the womb, that it was any kind of harm to the baby. And so I lived in the womb of a smoking mother. So a lot of weakened immune factors came upon me that have affected me in my whole life. So my immune demands and my weakness towards the flu is probably higher than another person who was born a natural birth, maybe with a midwife, and they had a healthy breastfeeding with their mother, and they had that nurturing. There were just all these different factors start from birth, and then they progress, is how they're connected with all the different things that we talk about in the 7 pillars. Yeah. Were they getting hydrated all those years? Were they eating healthy food? I remember the French fryer we used to keep in our kitchen. It was a big old metal device, and it had a basket on the inside, and the whole inside of it was filled with lard, and it would solidify in between uses. And then my mom would heat it up, and that lard then would liquefy, and she would throw in potatoes and just got it scalding hot, and it would splash all kinds of, it was, well, my brother caught the kitchen on fire with it one time. He forgot it was on, and he was downstairs playing pool, and the smoke damaged the whole house, and we had to have insurance redo the whole house. It's how dangerous. Wow. But that was the norm, to cook with a French fryer. Mm-hmm. and fry your food in lard. And we know today that is not an optimal way to eat.
Right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Steve. And that's helpful. I think a lot of people can realize that while there are genetic factors, and essentially genetic factors are family history influence, right? There is that influence. They don't necessarily have to suffer from disease. Like, you had a propensity, but you changed that by influencing and making better decisions in regard to what was in your environment and what you put inside your internal environment, inside your body. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Now we've got one last thought, one last question, and then we're going to kind of close things down here. But have you, in your experience with clients, have you helped clients get over the flu or seasonal sicknesses? And what would you tell them to do? I know you kind of dove into that, when we were talking about earlier, but what are some very specific things that you can tell somebody now that they can do, let's say with those 7 proven steps, walking through those one at a time? What could they do? And what do you tell clients to do to get over the flu if they do get sick?
Well, that's a loaded question right there. And we'll hit some highlights of that. I'm thinking back, when COVID became popular, and people were all concerned about it. And then they went out and got vaccinated. Within the first year and a half that COVID was supposed to be this pandemic, scary thing that was going on, which it really wasn't, we saw none of our clients were getting sick in a year and a half time. Then that was 2019 to 2021. And then early in the spring in 21, the big push for vaccines were going on and a lot of people were getting vaccinated. It was at this time that we saw people started to have a lot more conditions of COVID. And so we were getting exposed to these spike proteins in our office, and we were doing just fine. But even with all that exposure for that 2021 year, but it was in that summer that we got ill because of letting our immune systems get down over that summer vacation time. But what we tell those clients that were coming in, we're dealing with preservatives and chemicals that are in the vaccine that go directly into the bloodstream that weaken immunity, that put a load on their detox pathways of their liver, that put stress on their kidney function. And so we're supporting those organs of detoxification. We're also needing to be careful about the neurological effect that they have. They'll disrupt neurotransmitter signaling, and they cause a depletion of a lot of nutrients. So within the seven pillars, then, now we have to do diligent amounts of tests to find out where they're deficient, do the lymphocyte response, do the micronutrient test. We do regular standard blood chemistries to identify what's going on with the liver, how's the kidneys functioning, where their protein levels are at. A lot of times people lose their appetite during that time. And so with that multiple impact, the cascade of food imbalances that they run into when they got sick, we dealt with all of that, and people would get well. I remember when we did an interview on a girl, I believe, that we have that in our record somewhere, that was vaccinated. And she said, "Oh my goodness, I'll never do that again." She was doing fine, got vaccinated, and boom, she came down with COVID immediately and was sick. And then some of the side effects of the medication were implicated. So we saw that all through 2021, and then things started to quiet down in 22. There was a lot of adjustments that took place for people. A lot of clients were coming. A lot of people were implementing a lot of the immune bundle that you're sharing today that everybody can take advantage of. But not just the immune bundle, we were doing specific biochemistry evaluation so we could see the need for B12. We could see the need for probiotics because their immune system had been compromised in the gut. A lot of antibiotics are taken by people thinking that helps get rid of viruses, and it doesn't. And so that would disrupt the flora of the gut, and then they were more susceptible to other types of infection. So loading back in with a healthy probiotic that is properly balanced, like we use in our probiotic 10 Max. And not to mention, one of the biggest errors in metabolism that we see, that's the number one cause of heart disease. And I really believe it's kind of at the core of why a lot of people get sick in general. And that's a lack of really getting a quality fatty acid like we have in our pure omega-3. Omegas are hard to process out of plants and animals. And to get the purity that we need without damaging the oil when it's processed out is a big issue. We don't typically metabolize the plant forms of omega-3s effectively. Now, these are essential fatty acids. People need them. Function doesn't happen without them. And so we require them in our diet. That's why the research scientists named it essential fatty acid. The word essential meaning absolutely necessary. Without it, look what happens. Inflammation takes off, cells get on fire. And when inflammation happens, immunity goes a wreck. And that's why people are hurting all the time. So then what do? Well, they take steroids. And you take steroids and you have greater immune suppression, and people end up with diabetes. Numbers of people came out of hospitals having been treated with steroids, and they're now labeled diabetic and told they're going to be on insulin the rest of their life. And we worked with those people, and they were able to reverse that condition, cleanse out that steroid damage, repair the body systems, get the immune system back in order, but then restore glucose metabolism that happens at the cellular level. And that's a whole another discussion, which I'm excited to get into that this year too. We're just,
right.
Man.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into more topics, folks. Stay tuned. Every Thursday, we're changing the time. It was 3 o'clock. Now it's noon. So 12 o'clock every Thursday, we'll be going live. So set your calendar. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And that way, what it'll do is it'll notify you when we're going live. The bell, even if you want to get notified, even more, you click the bell icon, and that'll help you get notified when we're going live. We also are going to be having other guests join our show. We're going to be talking on more popular topics. We're going to be answering your questions. And so definitely continue to make sure you join us. We're trying to bring this information to you. What we're doing is very different. We are funding this ourselves. We are the ones doing the work here. So we're going to get you information that's actually going to get results, not information that is based on the typical information promoting the system. So we do have a system of doing things, and we have products we use, but the system we use and the products we use are actually the things that we do ourselves and that work for our clients. So you want to stay tuned as far as what we're doing here, the products we're using. You want to try them out for yourself. Try them out for 30 days. Whatever bundle you want to try, even just one product. If you give it a try for 30 days, we are pretty certain that you'll feel the difference because our quality is different in these formulas. So
hey man, make no
check
mistake
it out
about that.
Today,
Folks.
So every show we're going to give you a discount, and today we're going to give you a 10% discount if you use today's date 9/14/23 and SHOW. That's the code you put in at checkout. 9/14/23 SHOW. So it's a total of 9 characters, and you type that into the coupon code, and that will get you the discount. That expires next week. So you have that code available to you for 10% discount. Now, we do have ability for subscription at 15%, but you have to commit to a monthly subscription. This code you can use for just a one-time purchase if you want to try our supplements out for your first time. So check that out. Use that code, get a 10% off your order for this next week. And then we'll check back in with you in the show next week, Thursday at noon Central. This is Central Standard Time. We're in Houston, Texas, so Central. If you're on the East Coast, it's going to be 1 p.m. If you're on the Pacific side, it's going to be 10 a.m. So definitely check us out. And we're glad you've joined us. Steve, thank you so much for your feedback. It's really helpful to hear from your experience, and then all your experience as far as yourself, and then also the many, I think, thousands of people that you've helped over the past 30 years to help improve their health. I'm really glad you've been able to share with us today and that experience. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure, Jason. Thanks so much for your hosting and providing these coupons as well. And if you would, when you give that coupon, if any of the folks want to order the Pure Omega-3 or our B12 sublinguals, those are and the probiotic, those aren't listed in the immune bundle, but those are kind of our adjunct for immunity that we really need. We need the B12 to generate new cells. We need that Pure Omega. So I would say include
those are all
10%.
available. So the
Awesome.
Great thing is this is like a kickoff discount for this first week of the Prosper Nutrition Show. 10% off all the products with this code for this 1 week.
Okay,
so,
excellent.
Yes, 9/14/23 show, SHOW, 9/14/23 show. That's 10% discount on all the products on the website. I'm going to put it in the chat here. We actually got a question here from someone watching live. They asked about when the next time we're going to be doing the LRA ELISA Act testing. I think they're talking about us doing it here at the office. And so
that's always available.
Question.
People can do that at the office. We can talk about offering a coupon code for that later, but the test can be run every month when we have scheduled phlebotomy in our office, you contact our front desk at 281-440-0024, and they can set you up on the schedule. You can do a basic panel, you can do an enhanced basic panel, you can do a comprehensive, and you can also review the details of the depth of those tests on the nutritionandhealthcenter.com.
Right.
We encourage at least the enhanced basic, but the comprehensive provides heavy metals and chemicals that go above and beyond. And that's the one that I've been doing to identify so many exposures that we have out there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So thank you. So thank you for that question. When is your next ELISA test? So the next time that we do it is whenever is convenient for you, but we also have specials once a month. So that's another thing to keep track of. If you go to nutritionandhealthcenter.com, you'll be able to find our information, get in touch with us, get on our email list there. So we've got 2 email list opportunities: Prosper Nutrition, which is our online store, and then we've got the office, nutritionandhealthcenter.com, that we help our clients. So you can stay connected with both, and we'd be happy to help you on either end. A lot of the reason why we're here as Prosper Nutrition is because we know that not everyone can come and see us at Nutrition and Health Center. And so now we're trying to really reach out to everybody out there that can connect with us, that can buy a supplement, that can get started on their health. And so if you have friends or family member that maybe can't afford to go to a nutritionist, or maybe they don't have the ability to come see us here locally, get them connected at prospernutrition.com, and they can get started there. We're available to help you. We're nutrition professionals that make ourselves available for you. We want to talk to you about your health. We want to get you results. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you again, Steve. Is there any last words you'd like to share in regard to immune health and exposure and encouraging the people that are listening?
Just another reminder to download that 7 proven steps and share it with everybody you know. They are those ancient principles that God has given us that really get you excited, and you just start living them out day after day and watch the body be transformed and walk in that promise of abundant health. Because God said, "Beloved, above all things, I wish you would prosper and be in health." And I pray that for you today. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. See you next Thursday.